Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not. We are getting down to the nitty gritty with Legends of Tomorrow as we talk about season 5. Go over here. Season 5. My son and I finished another season. We're now in the middle of season 6. So, I still think this is a solid season, but it does have issues. So we left off, Heyworld saved the day, but also changed the timeline. Because of Heyworld, now metahumans are no longer hunted down in the future, and therefore Zari's future changes, and because she left the temporal zone to be alongside Nate, even though she did not need to be there, she did, history changed, and she was replaced with her brother Behrad. And so now we gotta deal with the fallout from that, excuse me. And I will say this. They could have easily, so this is the first season to start after Crisis, post-Crisis on Infinite Earth. This, like, the technically first episode of season 5 is the last part of Crisis, but we don't count that as one of the episodes, even though other websites do. It's technically not the official first episode. Meet the Legends is. And this, I gotta give it to them. They could have, instead of dealing with the changes, they could have just said, oh, well, Crisis changed it back. So Zari is now back on the team again. But no. Or Crisis changed things around to where she still joined. I don't know. But no. Behrad is still a part of the team, and nothing is too changed. Really, there's one significant change that affects the entire season. But other than that, no. Casting update. Cast update, I should get. 2 new cast members are now regulars. 2 cast members previously recurring are now regulars. With Matt Ryan, John Constantine now being a regular, and there was another one. Who was it? It's not Gary. Oh, Astra. She's not on the cover, so that's why. The actress plays Astra. She is now a regular after appearing in season 4. So, yes. And so, as you know from the end of season 4, that there are history's greatest villains are now spread out through time. Because for the first 6 seasons, they had to have a thing. In the first season, it was trying to track down Vandal Savage in different times. In the second season, it was the Aberrations. In the third season, it was the Anachronisms. In the fourth season, it was the Fugitives. And now we have what is called Encores. Yes, because they get a second life, so it's their encore. They come back to life, they get an encore. You know what I mean? I guess. So, history's greatest villains released by Astra and this mysterious woman who raised her in hell. Who is she? Well, we find that out throughout the season. Storylines. John is on a quest to find the Loom of Fate so that he can bring back Astra's mother for her. Charlie is also on that same quest because we find out that Charlie is actually Clotho, one of the 3 Fates who created the Loom, and she's actually the Loom Breaker. And she separated it throughout the multiverse. However, due to Crisis, all 3 parts are now on our Earth, which means that they were probably, if they were on separate Earths, the only 3 Earths we know that came together were Earth 1, Earth 38, and Black Lightning's Earth. So, that's where they were hidden. It has to be. One was on Earth 1, one was on Earth 38, the other one was on Black Lightning's Earth. Those are the 3 Earths that come together that we know of. all the other things are separated again on different Earths. That, I'm just saying, it makes sense if you really think about it. But I digress. I do like that because the first produced episode, I should say, the first episode shown to us was tended to the last part of the crossover. We don't have to worry about going through the middle and stopping to do the crossover, which they weren't in the 4th season crossover. They had a weird episode, but I like that. So Charlie is out to try to find the Loom to help Constantine with this, although she doesn't want to, but she has to. And Charlie's sisters, the other two Fates, one of which is the aforementioned mysterious woman who raised Astra in hell. The other one is a Amazon-like woman who can kill by just like turning into a ball of light. I think is like their actual appearance. And she does this to Sarah, but of course, Sarah has plot armor. She doesn't die. She just goes blind, and there's never really a good explanation as to why she just goes blind. I don't know. You could say, what you could have said is the magic that John used to get rid of her bloodlust, or to free her from whatever trance she was back in season 4 of Arrow, did that, or she's not completely, normal. But I don't know, they never really go to that length. Also, on Nate's side, he is starting to kind of bleed in between realities, where he kind of sees Zari here now, but he doesn't know who it is until he goes to Bear Odds with him for dinner, and he meets Zari and realizes it's her. They also do a thing with Gideon where she's trying to discern there's like 2 different realities. I think it's a product of Crisis, but it's not, and that kind of just goes away really quick. I don't know. And they don't really go too much into him, having these memories of her. He does, but then it just sort of goes away. And Zari just sort of joins the Legends because she gets taken on there so that she wouldn't tell their parents, and then just decides to stay. It's kind of meh. And oh boy, did my son not like her. Although he does admit she's getting better in season 6. And I will agree. But she's just insufferable. They made her one of those social media enthusiasts that you just cannot stand. You go on there, they're all, they're full of themselves, and you just want to throw them off a cliff. They made her one of those. And it is one of those decisions that I remember back when this first aired, going, okay, when can she go back to the other Zari? When can she go back? When can we? No, she never does really go back. Not really. I need to talk about Mick, but to do that, I gotta talk about Mona. Mona was a fixture during season 4. She's a regular. Here she's recurring, and she shows up at the beginning of this, and she takes Mick's books from him because he's having a different story this season. So she becomes Rebecca Silver and writes the books, right? And goes on. She has this appearance here, one in the middle of the season and one for the finale. Mick goes on his own journey. He goes back to 2004 and meets up with an old flame, hooks up with her, and then now in 2020, he finds out he has a daughter named Lita, named after Lita Ford. But I have an issue with a 40-year-old. I guess it was for their reunion, right? So she was, okay, never mind. But he is 40, and they would be in their 30s, right? He's like almost 50, I guess. I don't know what age Mick Roy is supposed to be, but I don't know. But because they track down a murderer, and they do their Friday the 13th thing where it's actually the mom that's the murderer, and it's Beth Riesgraf, and I didn't realize the first time I watched it. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's Elliot, not Elliot. Harper? Well, she's from Leverage. But, yeah. So Mick's story now is trying to connect with his daughter, and Ava helps with that. Ava also becomes co-captain of the Wave Rider with Sarah, which is interesting, and their relationship does move on. But we gotta talk about the bad. Well, before we get to that, let's talk about Bayrod. It's not really bad; it's more of a mixed aspect. So I'm not gonna get into the bad that, but so he's basically Zari. He wears like the flannels and stuff from before, but they do something new with him. He is like the ship's mechanic person, like Zari was, but he's a pothead. They make him a pothead, which is not what Zari was, though she had a lot of donuts, but he's a pothead. And so this led to some confusion with my son because, as a kid, you're taught drugs are bad. Drugs are bad. And he's watching this and he's going, wait, isn't that bad for you? And I'm like, well, you see, weed is now what's legal here in Minnesota, at least. So it's pretty much legal in most, if not half, of the U.S. Weed, when it comes to drugs, weed is the least of your concerns. It makes you giggly and happy and whoa. And I told him, once you're of age, like once you're 21, you want to do that, go ahead. But you have to be 21, not a teenager. When you're 21, you want to do that, fine. I drink alcohol, so I can't tell him not to drink alcohol. But if you want, I don't do that myself. But if he wants to do that when he grows up, once he's 21 years old, that's fine. But this is contradictory. I told him, you can't smoke cigarettes, but you can do that. That's the lesser of two evils, in my opinion. But it's just like, when you're portraying it on TV shows nowadays as a positive thing, in a way, like, go back to around the year I was born, 87. Reagan's war against drugs. There's no way you could put something, you had that, there's a million men and things to say no, with the whole cartoons coming together on CBS to tell that drugs are bad and good. But, like, nowadays, you try to say, you're like, drugs are bad. Stuff like cocaine and crack and heroin. Don't do that. Weed's okay, but don't do the heavy stuff. No cocaine, crack, or heroin. But weed's fine. It's at least, it's the lesser of evils when it comes to drugs. And when they portray it on TV shows and stuff, it's fine. So he was confused, and I had to kind of talk to him that it's okay. And really, that kind of goes into season 6 is when he asked me this, but it's still sort of the situation. He doesn't get the gummies, though. He doesn't get the gummies because he shows the gummies. He doesn't get it. So he's just like, he's eating gummies, but he doesn't get that yet. So, and he hasn't asked. So I'm not going to say anything until he asks. So I'm just saying. But yeah, so that's Bayrod. But let's get to the bad. So it was announced before the season aired that one of the original cast members, Brandon Routh, along with his wife Courtney Ford, would be leaving the show. And this not only gets rid of one of the fan favorite characters, but also leaves the story open-ended. So at the end of season 4, Nora was a fairy godmother. She was Gary's fairy godmother. Gary is just around to do stuff. He doesn't really have a storyline. He's Constantine's apprentice, which was his last wish from Nora. But other than that, he doesn't really do anything. He's Gary. Who cares? They give him more stories in the next season, let me tell you that much. But anyway, she's a fairy godmother now. She's granting wishes to kids, and it's kind of messing with her relationship with Ray. But one of the encores that comes back is Damien Darhk. And in this episode, not only does Ray propose, they get married. And then Damien says that to protect Nora's best interest, they have to leave. And we've read it and all that stuff. And so basically, he has to quit the Legends but support her as a fairy godmother because they don't wrap up that story. They leave the Legends, but they never stop her. They never cure her from being a fairy godmother. Although I will say, when we see her in Flash Season 8, she doesn't have the fairy godmother get up, but she doesn't always wear that. That's never resolved because they wanted to get rid of... Yeah, they wanted to get rid of Ray. This was not Brandon Routh's decision from what I remember reading. He was not happy with this decision. And why did they get rid of him? Well, I don't think there was ever an answer given. But if I was to wager a guess, budget. You see, Legends is the most expensive of the DC produced shows. CW produced DC shows, I should say. And a lot of that goes into animating the Atom suit, which he wore less and less of as the show went on. And so they decided that they couldn't have a show with the Atom on it without him having a suit, so they got rid of him. And that leads to some, when you really think of, when if you really think about it, that's the budget. You really lived into the later part of the seasons where it just, they could have used something but didn't. They could have done something but didn't, right? So, as the season goes on, they get the 3 pieces of the loom and try to put it together, but Charlie's the only immortal there, or the only one there, so they could do it, but she's not strong enough. So they go after this chalice, which happens to be located at Nate's alma mater college. Well, a rival of his alma mater college. They get it, and they all drink from it, and all become immortal for one day. And this was the episode that pissed me off, because it's complete and total filler that negates the whole reason for them getting that chalice. They drink out of it, and they say they have 24 hours before it goes away. Right away, they're stranded at Constantine's house, which is another set introduced in this season, is Constantine's house. They have the Wave Rider to kind of ground them a little bit with Constantine's house. But, but they're stuck there, so then they have to walk to the London offices of the time, whatever they're called, which is defunct now, by the way, but they're time couriers at the office. So they have to walk there amid a zombie apocalypse. Now, the issue is, there are so many ways they could have gotten around this. Have Constantine use magic to teleport them there. No, they don't. At all. So they walk, and they walk, and they walk, and the zombies attack them. And not once do anyone, except for Nate, use their powers. I mean, I think they use the wind totem too, but Constantine never uses his magic to get rid of the zombies. And Mick never uses his flamethrower, and zombies, they don't like fire. He never uses his fire gun at all to take care of the zombies. Zombies don't like fire. Trust me. I've seen enough of zombie movies to know that. No, they just constantly keep running and running and running until the time runs out. So the whole them being immortal is pointless. And the other 2 fates have the Wave Rider. That's why it's not there anymore. Just remember that. Finally, they get to a pub, but they're surrounded by zombies who come in and attack them. And they all, for lack of a better term, they die. Because they're not able, except for Charlie. She gets to the Wave Rider and decides to work with her sisters and create the Fate world. Which, is another tactic to stretch the season. Because we have 2 episodes left. Which leads us to the one where they're all stuck on TV. Yes. Welcome to Fate World. Oh, bow down to the Fates. Where we follow Mona, who's a normal person. She's typing stuff, and she can't type anything that offends the Fates or has anything to do with rebelling, or you have to follow everything. It's boring. But she meets a person who is yelling about how the world is wrong, and it's Gary, with weird hair and stubble. And so she goes home to watch TV, and we get the Dynamic Bros, which is friends with Behrad and Nate and Zari 2.0. It's during this that Zari 1.0, the original Zari, comes through with the totem and takes over, and they start to jump from show to show. The next one is a mock of Downton Abbey with Constantine and Astra's mother is there. And now Behrad is supposed to be betrothed to Astra. I don't know. But they eventually get out of there by convincing John to like a portal. And the thing is, during this, Zari's still the only one who has the memories. Everyone else is still in character. So Nathan Bayrout are still dude bros. Constantine is still a butler, and Astra is still a prim and proper lady type character. They go to a Space Trek, which is a Star Trek ripoff, with Sarah doing a very bad Shatner impression, but all Shatner impressions are bad because Shatner is Shatner. And Ava is, of course, Mr. Spock. All the rest are androids. But they are stuck in there, and then they end up back in the real world because they get their shows canceled. Well, not yet. They end up, Charlie realizes, we find out that Charlie put them there to keep them safe because the Fates wanted them dead. But Mona and Gary find out where the stuff is being controlled from and type in that they remember everything. And by everything, they mean everything. They remember both timelines, both Zaris, everything. Except for Mick, because he revealed later as being part of Space Trek, he's basically Khan. But he doesn't get his money back. Everyone else does. They eventually get their shows canceled, which brings them back to this world. Well, they end up at Mr. Parker's cul-de-sac, which is, was mentioned earlier by Ray. They did get trapped in there earlier, too, during the Damien Dark episode. But now they're there again. And Charlie uses Mr. Parker to try to trick them into going back. And Astra does choose to go back to the Downton Abbey ripoff because her mother is there. But then she realizes that, the mother in there wants her to live her life, and she doesn't need her mother anymore. So she decides they all gotta get their shows canceled. And Mick wanted to stay in Space Trek. I love Space Trek. But he goes to track down his daughter, and they destroy the loom and take off in the Wave Rider, which doesn't have a Gideon yet. And it doesn't work. They jump for a few months later, and they got now a wristwatch that tells you what to do. And it's controlled by Gideon because they took Gideon and they put her there. So, yeah. And now they have a museum to all bad things like the shake weight and cigarettes and Cisco. Not that Cisco. The thong song Cisco. Yes, because the thong song is a bad thing, apparently. And Nate is ready to push the button, but Ava's like, no, we're not doing that. Yet. Yeah, because in typical Legends faction, we get a fight with music. Because they go there, and Charlie decides to, fight against her sisters. But they go there, and they fight against these encores to the thong song. And they establish early on that certain weapons brought back with the encores are called hell weapons, and they're the only thing that can kill them. So they're using the shake weight and everything, and they're not doing anything. They need hell weapons. So they use the hell weapons, and they get rid of them. By the way, Marie Antoinette is also played by Courtney Ford, and she comes back, as does Mona, but not Ray. Even though, when the reality changed, Ray and Nora would also have been affected, and they could have brought them back, but I think, after the bad taste of them leaving, they're just like, no, we're not. No. I don't know. But, yeah, they save the day, and they go back to the 70s and celebrate with Charlie's band, The Smell. If you forget that was the band. And then Charlie decides she's not going to go with them. She's done. Because her story is done now. We completed her story, so she's staying with The Smell in England, and, yeah. We're leaving. So, as they walk along, Sarah stops and looks around and is abducted by aliens. That's right. Season 6 is going to deal with aliens. Aliens. That's right. Aliens. So, that ends season 5. And Astra does sort of become a part of the Legends as the season goes along. She has the arc of she's villain at the beginning, and then Constantine entices her with bringing her mother back, so she joins them. Neglectfully, they don't trust her, of course, but eventually she wins them and she becomes a legend. She's not on the cover, even though she's a regular. But, yeah. So that's season 5. A decent season. And from what I've seen of season 6 so far, it's still decent. I don't think it's terrible. I like that Mick has to have some responsibility now for his actions, where he's been a thief his entire life and he doesn't care about the results of his action. And now he's done something which resulted in him having a daughter. He's got to take responsibility. I like that. Sarah's story, which, by the way, she's not blind when she's in Space Trek and she's brought back and she's blind again. But once they destroy the loom, she gets her eyesight back. Yeah. Then her powers are gone, too. I don't know why they did that for her. Her story goes in such a different way in season 6. We'll get to it, but I'm just saying. So, what are your thoughts on season 5 of Legend of Tomorrow? Let me comment below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. There it is. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.